Hi everybody, Matt here from Matt Likes Comics. Today, I've decided to do a bit of another one of those creator videos where I talk about a comic book professional who was involved in the, making of comic books, obviously. Because, what else? Today, we're going to talk about a baker. You know, he's a good baker. He makes some very good, he makes good buns and cookies and cakes. And that baker is my wife. No, just being silly. Today we're going to talk about, I call him the god, like even though he wasn't the first, I call him the godfather of fandom. And unlike the rest of us, he actually turned around and had a career in comic books. I, of course, am referring to Roy Thomas. Now, I could do literally a 3 to 4 hour video on Roy Thomas. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do some of the highlights of his career. I did a page in a little bit, and then I'm going to show a bunch of the books I have, some of the books I have that Roy Thomas was involved with. Hopefully, it'll be about 20 minutes tops, but if I'm a little longer, bear with me. The fact is that Roy Thomas is so accomplished in the comic book medium that one small video can't even begin to cover everything. So I will do my best to do a briefish history, talk about some of the characters he's done, show some of the books he's been involved with, and I will talk about why I like Roy Thomas. I mean, everybody out there probably has their own reasons for liking Roy Thomas. I'm just going to get into mine because I like it. Thank you to my good friends at Nefarious Comics for sponsoring me. I appreciate you. Information in the bottom in the description. Check them out. They've got some good books. He also Nefarious also does eBay auctions, live eBay auctions, a couple times a week. I'm not sure what dates because they tend to move around when he's got time. So, but check him out. He's got eBay auctions. He does, and his books are great quality. So you won't be disappointed. Now, Roy William Thomas Jr. was born in Jackson, Mississippi on November 22nd, 1940. So we're going. I mean, he's not a young man, but he's an accomplished man. He grew up a devoted comics fan and spent most of grade school creating comics to distribute to his family and friends. He fell in love with comics day one. Thomas became an early and active member of comic book fandom during the Silver Age of comics. When Jerry Bales founded the fanzine Alter Ego, Thomas became his editor in 1964. He was very prolific for letter writing to editors, and there's at least 7 known published letters in various Silver Age books. My source listed them all, but for brevity, I'm not going to. In 1965, Thomas sent out and went to work for DC as Mort Weisinger's assistant, which lasted a grand total of 8 days. It's Mort Weisinger. He then switched to Marvel without skipping a beat. In 1967, a bullpen bulletins written by Stan at the time showed that Roy Thomas admitted he turned down a scholarship just to work in comics. When Thomas started at Marvel, Lee liked his writing so much that he began to cut his own workload back and hand it to Roy. And by within 2 years, Stan got to the point where he was doing very little to Roy's stuff. He liked Roy's stuff that much. Thomas has been credited as creator or co-creator on many features, especially at Marvel, such as The Avengers, Conan, Doctor Strange, Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos, Nick Fury. That's where he worked. He wrote for a lot of these books, and he's listed as co-creators for characters such as the Vision, Doc Samson, Carol Danvers, Power Man, and Iron Fist, Defenders, the Invaders, not the characters themselves, but the teams, The Black Knight, Dane Whitman. Um, Thundra, the Valkyrie from the Defenders, Ultron. These were all done during his Avengers runs and Conan runs and Doctor Strange, etc. He then served as editor in chief in Marvel when Stan Lee broke down. When Stan Lee stepped down. Yeah, Stan Lee broke down. Did you not hear about that? When he stepped down in 1972 and was editor in chief until 1974. Moving to the Distinguished Competition in 1981, he briefly wrote DC Comics Presents, Batman, Legion of Superheroes on the brief Paul Levitz break, and Green Lantern before becoming the main writer of All-Star Squadron. It is here that he excelled, and this is why I like Roy Thomas so much. With his intimate knowledge of the Golden Age DC heroes, able to make stories that fixed and expanded upon DC continuity at the time. He also created the team Infinity Inc. in 1983 with Todd McFarlane, who were the various relatives of JSA members. He also wrote Wonder Woman for a bit during this time period. In 1984, he returned to Marvel. He was only at DC for 3 years, but he did finish out the All-Star Squadron. The All-Star Squadron went to 86. He was a big part of that right through. Okay. He returned to Marvel and also did a bunch of work for non-mainstream companies, being involved with titles such as Xena Warrior Princess, Hercules, and the X-Files for Topps Comics. And he re-released Alter Ego in the late 80s, early 90s for a bit. 2011 had him, and there's lots of stuff. Like I am literally skimming this guy's Wikipedia article just to give you an idea off the bat, where I always begin. Really long, and I condensed some of this. 2011 had him finally return to DC, writing as a Wonder Woman one shot called DC Retroactive Wonder Woman, because it involved Golden Age continuity. He also compiled he compiled stories of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman for Chartwell Books. At the time of this filming, Roy is still alive and kicking and doing the comic book circuit. I know that some people met him at HeroesCon last year out there. They're very lucky. He's really cool. He's also serves on the board, for the Hero Initiative, the advocate group for comic creators and such that are retired and stuff. His achievements are so much. I brought this many books to show. I could in series like All-Star Squadron, where I have the whole thing, I pulled out covers I thought were just cool. Like this, issue 5, where they're fighting over the Statue of Liberty. It was Earth all along. All-Star Squadron 6. Seven. 8. And 9. And 10. And I did want to include 10 because it in itself shows that, this thing here helps fill some holes in a Golden Age continuity, which we get to see even later when I show you the last books. Here are some of the Conan books from early Conan. 16. 18. 21. 22. 23, which is the first appearance of probably his famous original character, Red Sonja. And yes, I know I've shown this book before, but how can you not keep showing it? And Conan 25, which has a pretty cool cover. He also, as I said, he created the Defenders, and I'm going to show issue 24. Issue 45. Issue 46. And Giant Size Defenders 2, which is the first appearance of the Son of Satan with the team. And the Son of Satan, which I pulled only one of, this is issue 2, is another Roy Thomas co-creation. Son of Satan, of course, being my favorite Marvel character. You get the gist of another reason, yet another reason why I like Roy Thomas so much. But Roy's biggest contribution is as a comic, like, as much as he's a great writer and a great fan of the book, a great writer, and he was a decent editor, his greatest contribution is as a fan, as far as I'm concerned, and the knowledge as a fan that he brings to it. You might say he's one of the first ever comic historians out there. Jerry Bales is out. Stephen Gentner. They're great. They're great, absolute great comic historians. The late Jerry Bales, of course, basically created fandom on his own, and started with corresponding with fans he met over the years. And Jerry Bales, of course, was one of the original Overstreet advisors when Robert Overstreet did that. Stephen Gentner, my friend, is a current Overstreet advisor, and he's very, very knowledgeable with comic book history, especially the older, Silver Age and older. Roy lived it. It is almost like he was so immersed in it that he really lived on Earth too. And this here is America versus the Justice Society. Issue 1. Two, 3, and 4. Now, this video idea for me started as I was going to cover that series. This became more because what amazed me about that series as I was reading it, I only had the trade before, okay? When I got these books, and they were sent to me by Mr. McGroovy, thank you very much, Paul, I could not believe on the inside of the back and the front cover, both of them on the inside, there were notes, extensive notes of where each and every story happened, whether it was a solo story by a Hawkman or a Flash or a Dr. Midnight, or if it was a reference to All-Star Comics when they were together, or even, a reference to recent events with, Infinity Incorporated, Justice League of America, or whatever was going on. The notes that were provided with this series were so extensive and so knowledgeable that it just blew me away. And I said, you know what? I have to actually take this and talk about Roy, because that was more impressive to me. Roy Thomas is what I aspire to be. He is a absolute knowledge bank of comic books. And that's what I would love to be. That's why I read everything. I want to know it all. And I know it's impossible to know it all, but that's what I want. And that is why I think Roy Thomas is absolutely amazing. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe below. Tell me what you think about Roy Thomas. I understand he's had some controversy lately especially with creators like Len Wein, who are no longer with us and can't defend themselves and talk about things, because apparently there's a controversy over who actually created Man Thing, for example, and Swamp Thing. Yeah, as a result, because of the whole thing going on. But I digress. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, subscribe. Check out my friends at Nefarious if you want to check out. Their website is actually quite good and linked in the description below. Thank you all for joining me today. I really appreciate you spending time with me. My name is Matt. I like comics, and I hope you do too. Bye, everybody.